Hello, everyone, and welcome back to King's Advisors. Today, we're going to be talking about episode 5 of Reacher. Now, I know I'm a little behind on this. Last week, I got really caught up in Yellowstone and kind of got addicted to it. So this kind of got pushed back. Now, I do want to preface this review or reaction to the episode by saying I think this was probably the weaker of the 5 episodes we've received so far. It's still probably a 7 out of 10 for me, but there's little things that happened throughout it that really kind of bugged me. But then there were also really good things that I feel like kept pushing the story and the questions and the what ifs forward. So the episode begins with this moment at David's house where he's kind of telling his wife that she and their kids need to go to Asheville to kind of lay low. And we get to really see like this father aspect, but also the chaos that being a family person has. And I feel like this kind of undoes the concern that people were having with how the previous episode was making Reacher look like he might have been missing things. He sees the chaos here, and you can definitely tell that he's uncomfortable. So I feel like that really kind of goes away with this idea that this season's actually setting up for a change in Reacher. So we go from the scene in their house to this scene where Carla and Neely are actually trying to find the weapons that Little Wing is. And they show up to this factory and they kind of find out, oh, the weapons have just left. They left like 10 minutes ago. So the rest of the episode is them really kind of trying to catch up, and they end up catching up and getting into a gunfight. There's some weird things about the gunfight they get into. They kind of get out of it in like a good way. It's not like anything super, let's say, woke or dumb, but it's just one of those things where watching it, I'm just kind of like, I don't really get how that happens. So what ends up happening is, if you fold down the middle seat in the back row of this kind of car, you can get into the trunk, and that's what they do. Um, it just seems kind of weird that they're doing all that while the people are constantly shooting at the car and no one gets hurt. That's just one of those little things that kind of pulls me out a little bit, just knowing, the spread and all that kind of stuff. It's not that big of a deal, and it's not like one of those things where, oh, they did it because they're girls so that they could be super powered and all that. It didn't come across like that at all. I just felt like I would have preferred seeing some sort of firefight prior to their escape, that kind of thing. So from here, we get a flashback scene to where Reacher and Swan are trying to sell the drugs that they found in the previous episode. And the purpose of this scene is to really kind of continue the is he, isn't he question about Swan. So at the end of this scene, he actually ends up taking a bullet for Reacher. So the question then becomes, well, if Swan is bad, why'd he do that? I think they use this really well because in the previous episode, we do kind of get that feeling that Swan might actually be bad. And the purpose of this scene is because just prior to this, there's a phone call between Reacher, David, Neely, and Carla, where they're kind of talking about what they found. And Neely mentions that Swan signed out the weapons. And apparently, in order to do that, he had to have been physically present in the Little Wing facility that they crashed the car into. And they talk about how it would have been impossible for him to be like forced through there without making a scene with all of their biometrics and cameras and security guards and all that. So this kind of offsets that. Oh, well, he's definitely bad then. So we go from that flashback to this scene between the senator and Reacher. The senator is actually the boss of that senator's aide that they kidnapped in the previous episode. So this whole conversation is basically the senator trying to remind Reacher that they can still have a win-win here. And if he does what he did in Margrave here, then they can both come out of this unscathed. Obviously, Reacher doesn't really care, but it does seem like it piques his interest when the senator says, and I can make sure that any blowback doesn't affect you. So it does really seem like Reacher wants to continue that solitary life. So from there, we go back to New York, where Russo and Reacher have this big fight at their friend's funeral, and it actually ends up in a firefight. Before we get into the firefight, I do want to talk about one of the things that really kind of pulls me out of this type of situation in a show like this. All these salutes are really, really bad. And the reason that pulls me out is because it kind of makes me feel like the people they have on set don't care. I would imagine with how many times they end up doing and talking and let's call it military jargon, that they've got some sort of military contractor on set to kind of make sure that the language in the script is correct and things like that. And so to possibly have this guy on set and not have him make sure that the salutes look right just kind of bugs me. Like we see here, Carla right here, her wrist is breaking right here. And that's not what a salute looks like. Honestly, it looks like they've been filming the scene over and over and over, and all their arms are tired. That's what it looks like to me. So they get into a firefight here. We've seen the image several places where he's hiding behind the grave. And so they get into a firefight, they chase him down, and they get one of the guys. And just before their plan is to have him go into this place where he's going to meet the people that are going to pay him. He goes in there, building blows up, and that's how the episode ends. So, unfortunately, not as cool of an ending as the previous episode, but still a solid episode. Like I said, it is the weaker of the 5 episodes that have come out, but I'd still say a solid 7 out of 10. I am looking forward to actually getting an answer about whether or not Swan is good or bad and seeing the kind of beat down that Reacher is going to put on Robert Patrick's character. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Twitter at @KingsAdvisors_.